so we learned how to graph in standard form yesterday, ax squared plus bx plus c. So now what we need to look at is vertex form and intercept form. Again, you wouldn't want to have to make something in standard form if it's in a different form. So, three forms. Standard form, I talked about yesterday. Ax squared plus bx plus c. We found the vertex doing the opposite of b over 2a. We plugged that in. We plotted it. We drew our axis of symmetry. We found 2 points. We reflected. So, second form is vertex form. And the thing that you want to remember is these forms, their name is giving you the important point. So if you have something written in the form where you have a quantity being squared, so that is called vertex form. It's also shifted form. So, if you think what is happening inside, it's going right and left the opposite way. So it moves right when it's negative, left when it's positive. K, it's going up and down correctly. Up is plus, down is minus. But if you think of that right, left, up, down move, your vertex is the opposite of what you see inside. If it's minus h, it's positive h. If it's plus h, it's negative h. And then k. Your axis of symmetry is always at that x value of the vertex. A is still controlling up and down. Right side up, upside down. If A is greater than 0, it's right side up. If A is less than 0, it's upside down. So if we think, what are our steps? In vertex form, you're going to find the vertex. You're going to do the opposite of what's inside. If there's nothing inside, it's 0. And then up and down k. Again, if there's nothing out there, it's 0. You didn't have to do any work. You got your vertex. You plot your vertex. You draw your axis of symmetry. And then there's 2 different sort of ways. You can solve to find the zeros, or you can make a table. And, I'm sort of going to show you both ways. And it's really what is being asked. So if I gave you this and I said, graph that, there is no opposite of b over 2a. So you think left 2, down 3. Or you can just think it's the opposite of what's inside, left 2, down 3. So I go left 2, down 3, draw my axis of symmetry. One way would be make a table, just like you did before. 2x is bigger than negative 2 would be negative 1 and 0. Plug them in. And just plug it in just how you see it. So it would be negative 1 plus 2 squared minus 3. Which negative 1 plus 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. Minus 3, negative 2. 0 plus 2 squared minus 3 gives you 1. So negative 1, negative 2. 0, 1. Reflect. That would be a graph. Now, if it asks you for the zeros, which would be these points, you could, instead of making a table, find this, which gives you that first point, and then set x plus 2 squared minus 3 equal to 0. And that's using square roots. So you would add 3, get x plus 2 squared equals 3, which this gives practice on people that can't do square roots. Square root both sides. X plus 2 equals plus or minus square root of 3. Subtract 2. You'd have negative 2 plus or minus square root of 3. You'd actually have to find those. So you'd have to put in your calculator negative 2 plus square root of 3. Get that. Negative 2 minus square root of 3. And that would give you these decimal numbers. Just to look at one more like that. So this is vertex form again. I always find my vertex. Right 3, up 4. Opposite of what's inside, what's outside stays the same. 3, 4. Axis of symmetry. One way would be make a table. That's 3. 2 numbers bigger would be 4 and 5. And you just put it in your calculator just how you see it. Okay, so, I mean, you just do it. And it can give you a decimal, like it gives you 3.5. And then 5, you do negative 1/2, 5 minus 3 squared plus 4. I think that gives you 2. So you'd have 4, 3.5, 5, 2. You'd reflect it. There's your graph. Why is it upside down? Because that's negative. The other option would be, if you wanted to find these zeros where it hit, take, I'm going to sort of do it down here, take negative 1/2 x minus 3 squared plus 4, set it equal to 0. Again, it does give you guys some practice on doing square roots. Divide by negative 1/2. You would get x minus 3 squared equals 8. Square root both sides. X minus 3 equals plus or minus square root. And you won't have to reduce that because you're just getting decimals. So 3 plus square root of 8, 3 minus square root of 8, and you could get those numbers. So that's vertex form. Definitely the table is easier. So intercept form. Vertex form gives the vertex. Intercept form is factored form. So you see 2 sets of parentheses. You think of setting those 2 things equal to 0. And you're going to get the opposite of this and the opposite of that. Those are your x-intercepts. So if you think about it, those are dots. 2 dots on the x-axis, your zeros. You need the axis of symmetry. Well, your axis of symmetry is halfway between. So how you get that is you would add P and Q together and divide by 2. That gives you your axis of symmetry. All you have to do now is find the vertex, which I'll show you. Again, A controls it. Greater than 0 is up. Less than 0 is down. So if we look, your steps for this one, find the x-intercepts, plot them. Find your axis of symmetry. Add the 2 intercepts and divide by 2. Find the vertex. So this gave you the axis of symmetry, the middle. You are then, whatever that x is, plug it in to find the y. So you want to think, plug in your x to find the y. Okay, which would be the middle x, whatever's in the middle. Okay, so if I do one of those, just to give you an idea, this is intercept form, factored form. Don't pay any attention to this is just telling us it's going to be upside down. Okay, if x plus 2 equals 0 and x minus 4 equals 0, you would subtract 2 and get x equals negative 2. You would add 4 and get x equals 4. That's giving you a dot at negative 2, a dot at 4. Find the middle. Now some people will just like sort of count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. You know, you could find the middle. Or you do negative 2 plus 4 divided by 2. That gives you 1. So you know the middle is at 1. But you don't know where to put the dot. So that's where I say you plug it in. Now, you're plugging it in and doing negative 2 times 1 plus 2 times 1 minus 4. So just how you see it, plug it in a calculator, and that gives you, it's strange, but it does give you 18. And I know that's off the picture, but you would have a point way up here, and that's enough for you to draw an upside down parabola. So that is intercept form. Now, how would you do this? If it looks like this, most people are going to do the opposite of b over 2a. But what if you were someone that's like, hey, I think I could factor that. I could take a 2 out, and I could make it x squared plus 2x minus 24, and then I could make that x plus 6, x minus 4, and I could do intercept form. Sure. So most people, if it's in standard form, they do standard form. But if you can factor it, factor it. That's okay. The other thing you want to know, you can transform between the forms by distributing, factoring, or completing the square. Now, this is how we change to vertex form. I would say to you, I do that more in pre-calc, but I would know how to change into intercept or standard form. You have to be able to graph in all forms though, because otherwise you're not going to be able to finish a test. So just to see it, if I gave you intercept form, that's what this one is, and I said write it in standard form, you're going to distribute. Now, I usually say do this first. So just sort of keep your 4 there. X times x is x squared. X times 1 is x. Negative 8 times x is negative 8x. Negative 8 times 1. I usually then put together my like terms. So 1x minus 8x gives me minus 7x. Then I would distribute and get 4x squared minus 28x minus 32. But if you think about it, if I asked you to graph this, and you had to do all this work to get here, and then do the opposite of b over 2a, that's a ton of work. In this form, you put a dot at 8, you put a dot at negative 1, you find the middle, and you go from there. If it's in vertex form, this is where usually people mess up because they try to distribute the square. Remember what this means. That means there's 2 of them. So you actually would do this first, which would be x squared minus 3x minus 3x plus 9. Then distribute, you could put this together. That would be x squared minus 6x plus 9 minus 8. You can see, again, this is a ton of work. Distribute your 2, not to the negative 8 though. You'd get minus 12x plus 18 minus 8. And finally, you get y equals 2x squared minus 12x plus 10. Then you'd have to graph it. That would be a ton of work. If I know how to graph in this form, I know my vertex is at 3, negative 8 just by looking at it. So you have to think of the reason why we do these. As I said, which I sort of did on that last one, you can change to intercept form if it factors. So, sure, with this one, you could do the opposite of b over 2a, which, as I said, most people would do. But if you know that there's two numbers that multiply to give you 7 and add to give you 8, you could change that into intercept form and plot it and graph it. Vertex form, I'm just going to hold off on that. As I said, completing the square, we'll wait with that. But it is able to be done. Okay, so you want to think of those 3 forms. Then you're asked mostly with the assignment today is just vertex and intercept form. So then you'll have one of each.